what we've been asked to do in this question, we've been given a mystery substance and we've been asked to calculate what the molar mass of that mystery substance is. Now, in the question, we've been given some data about that substance. We've been provided with the number of moles of the substance. We've been provided with the mass of the substance. And so we've been asked to calculate the molar mass. So a few questions. Do we need to use the periodic table in this particular instance to work out the molar mass? Do we need to know what element the substance is to work out the molar mass? In this particular case, actually we don't need that information to work out the molar mass. And one of the key focus points of this question is the relationship between moles, mass, and molar mass. So what we've got here is the mass, right? So in this case it's in grams, but I'm just going to write it in the general terms. Mass, which I'll represent with small m, and that's going to be equal to the moles, which I'm going to use an n to represent, n multiplied by the molar mass, and I'm going to use a capital M to represent the molar mass. So mass is going to be the moles multiplied by the molar mass. And one of the other things I'm going to look at is the units for this. In this particular case, we've not been asked what particular units to give our answer in. However, my assumption is going to be that the answer would be best represented in the form of well, actually, let's derive what the units will be based on this equation, this relationship. And sometimes you might see this represented as a triangle, right? So mass equals moles multiplied by molar mass. So you might see this represented something like that as well, which, I mean, it's more or less the same thing. But let's look at it from a units perspective. So m, the mass, in this case, as we can see from the question, it's in grams, right? And that's going to be equal to the mole, so we can represent that as mole multiplied by whatever the units, right? Units of molar mass, right? Now, to work out what the units of the molar mass is, we're going to have to move this to this side of the equation. How are we going to do that? In this case, the way we're going to move the moles to this side of the equation, well, at least what we're trying to do is remove it from this side, albeit, right? We're trying to remove it from this side of the equation, is by dividing both sides by that particular unit. So in this case, we're going to divide this by moles, and we're going to divide this by moles, and what do we get? Well, this cancels out. That equals 1, right? So that would equal 1, and 1 times, well, the units of molar mass would be the units of molar mass, right? So grams over the mole equals units of molar mass. Therefore, we can also represent this in a more maybe a clearer way. So we can just represent this as grams multiplied by the mole to the power of -1. This is the same as this, right? So, you know, obviously something to the power of -1 is 1 over that, right? So like for example, 2 to the power of -1 is the same as 1 over 2. But I'll leave that for like maths lessons or something, I don't know. Anyway, so now applying that to this question, we're trying to work out the molar mass. What we're going to need to do is divide the mass here by the moles. So that is going to be, if you go over here, just go over here, that's going to be 77.45 grams divided by 0.78 moles, right? And what does that give us? Well, I would invite you to have a go at that on your calculator to see what the answer, what answer you get. In this case, the answer would be 99.29487.2. What we need to do at this stage is consider whether we've answered the question according to what it's asked us, right? So we've got the value, right? But is it to the correct number of decimal places? And have we is there anything else missing? So the answer, the question asks us to give our answer to 2 decimal places. This is clearly not to 2 decimal places at this stage, so we're going to need to round this. So this is going to be equal to 99.29. Right? Now, one of the things which I'm going to just draw some attention to is the fact that depending on the level of significant figures you rounded from, this is gonna affect what answer you get in this case, yes, effectively. Just to clarify, in this case, and as I've said, the answer would be 99.29. However, if you did round the answer earlier on, for example, when you were initially writing it out, you would get a different answer. So for example, if you had written out originally, you'd written 99.295, right? If you wrote this out as your initial answer and you subsequently rounded that to 2 decimal places, you're going to get 99.30 as your answer, which obviously, as you can see, this is different from this. And this is just to say that oftentimes it is recommended that you wait till the end to do the rounding of your answer. I think it is likely for a context like this, it's being like an AS related question, you would still get marks for something like this. It's not that different. However, this is just a general recommendation as far as exercising caution and precision, as to avoid unnecessary kind of loss of marks, for example. Now, going forward, going back to 99.29. So this is the value we've got, right? The question arises: is this our answer? We have gotten it to 2 decimal places, but at this stage, it still isn't our answer. Why is that? Well, the reason why is because part of what is important to actually defining our answer is the units of the answer. And in this case, we've got a value, we don't have the units. We need the units. What we've established here, as you remember, is that the units of molar mass in this specific context, as we've been given, is going to be grams per mole. Therefore, and you can see it from here anyway. We've got the grams being divided by the moles equals grams per mole. So here we need to add our units, so that's going to be equal to 99.29 grams per mole. So do we now have our answer? Well, we have the molar mass. Effectively, I mean, this is the correct units, as it says, give it to 2 decimal places. We've done that. So yes, this would be our answer at this stage. Okay.